So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the topics related to transferring from LPs and cassettes that I didn't get a chance to talk about in class. One thing I forgot to mention, which is an important thing to consider, is the fact that when you record from a cassette or an LP, it happens in real time. So a 90-minute cassette will take a minimum of 90 minutes to transfer onto the computer. An LP is typically 45 minutes long, so that'll take a minimum of 45 minutes. And it's best to transfer the entire cassette or the LP at once, and then you can do your editing on the whole thing, which makes it much easier. You don't have to remember any settings. And when Audacity needs to analyze the audio, it'll be analyzing the entire recording. So I'm going to show you a little bit in Audacity. When we have a cassette or an LP, we typically have two sides. So what do you do when you're done with side 1 or side A, and then you have to go on to side B? So what we can do is we can pause the recording, and I'm going to show you how that works. And what happens if you stop the recording versus pause the recording. So I'm going to start recording first, and then I'm going to hit stop, and then start recording again, and you'll see what happens. So here's Audacity. I have my input set to my microphone. I have this set to capture the audio from the computer. So here we go. I'm going to record a little bit. Hopefully it'll work out all right. So here I am doing some recording, and you can see the levels. They're okay. Yada, yada, yada. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm going to stop the recording. There it is. So we'll assume that's at the end of side A, and I just stopped. Now I'm going to hit record again after I've turned over my cassette or my LP, and watch what happens. Here I am recording. This is side B, so on and so forth. So if you see what happens here, it recorded on a new track, and it started back from the beginning, which could be a problem when I go to play it back. I'm going to be hearing both sides at the same time. So let's get rid of these. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to delete this track here. We're going to delete this track. Let me show you what happens if I do something different. I'm going to hit pause this time. So now I'm going to record, and this time I'm going to hit pause instead of stop. So I'm recording. Boom, boom, boom. Here's the end of side A. I'm going to go over and hit pause. And you can see it's in record pause, and where my cursor is hasn't moved. So now I'm going to hit pause again. I've turned over my record, my cassette. I'm going to hit pause again. And here we go to continue the recording. Now I'll hit stop. So you can see that hitting pause, it doesn't add a new track, and it just keeps going where you left off. Much better thing to do. So now I've done my recording, and now I'm ready to do my editing. So I've already imported another recording here. I'm not going to save this. So this is the first track and a little bit of the next track of my Loggins and Messina tape that I couldn't find anywhere, and I wanted to be able to listen to it, so I imported it, or I recorded it from my cassette player into Audacity. So I've already taken care of some of the steps that we normally would do. I removed the noise. I've edited it so that there's only 1 second at the beginning, and if I had recorded the entire cassette, I would have left a couple seconds at the end. And I've normalized it to -1 decibel or dB, and I removed the DC offset. So in essence, it's pretty much ready to go. Now, because this was a commercial recording, it's already taken care of all the fade-ins and fade-outs. If it was, let's say, since I teach in the music department, we have a recital recording, they might not have fade-ins and fade-outs, so I would have to add those in there. And that's done in the effect menu. Here's fade-in and fade-out. So now I am ready to export as separate tracks. And Audacity makes this super simple. What we want to do is we want to mark where all our tracks are, and then we just do a simple export. We can export them all. Audacity will separate them into separate tracks, and we'll add a number. So it'll add track 1 for the first track, it'll add a 2 for the second track, 3 for the third track, and so on. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to the beginning. I'm going to hit the rewind here, back at the beginning, and I have to see where it is. Here it is. So I'm going to add a label. So it says add a label. It's Command B. I'm guessing it's Control B in Windows, but the menus will be the same. If I go to Labels and add a label at the selection, so in other words, where my cursor is, I'm going to do that, and it creates a new track, a label track. Let me take a look at what the first track is called. It is called Angry Eyes. So in this little box here, I'm going to type in Angry Eyes. And now I know from listening to this that my other track is right about here. But I'm not exactly sure where. So what I want to do, and I would have my headphones on, so I'm going to select a little bit of the end, and you can see that there's a large space where there's nothing, so that's in between tracks. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to use the zoom to fit selection. So it's this one right in the middle. And now it is zoomed in. You can sort of see at the beginning, there's some sound here, but there's nothing here. So I usually play it. And where there's no sound, I wait a couple seconds, and it's right about here. So I'm going to leave the cursor there, zoom out to fit the project. Cursor hasn't moved. And now I'm going to go back to my Edit, Labels, and add a label at Selection. That's going to be where the second track will start. And that one is called Be Free. So now in the box that it just created, I'm going to type in Be Free. And then I would go through and do this for every track on the cassette. So we'll assume that I'm all done. And now I'm ready to export it. The first thing I'm going to do is create a separate folder. So I might label it the name of the recording. This is Loggins and Messina, the best of times, or I could, whatever. Something descriptive so you'll know what it is. Remember where I keep the folder, and that's where I'm going to put all the audio. I have a folder called Call Audio that I'm going to put it into. So here's what we do. When we have everything all marked, I'm going to go to File and Export, and then choose Export Multiple. And here's the folder. So make sure you choose the right folder. You can also use this to create a new folder if you forgot that step. I'm going to do mine as MP3 files with 256 as the quality. So I'm going to split the file based on the labels. So wherever there's a label, it's going to split the file automatically. And here's another useful thing. I'm going to add numbering before the label track name. So now I'm going to click Export. And it tells me the first name. I can type in the artist. I can fill in all this if I want to, but here's Angry Eyes, track number 1. I'm going to click OK. Here's Be Free, track number 2. And it would go on to all the tracks on the cassette. Click OK. And it's exporting the audio. And it tells me what it did. And let me show you my folder here. So here's my folder. It created track 1, Angry Eyes. track 2 be free, and it would go through all those, and then it's ready. Then you would just select those, import them into iTunes or whatever you use to store your music, your phone, whatever device it is, however you normally transfer music onto that device. Very simple. We can go over this more in class if you want to, but I thought I'd share this with you to save some time.